Power. I used to think it was just the hum in the walls, the porch light glowing steady at dusk, the fridge whispering in the dark. But power is also a smile, with too much lipstick, and a clipboard that thinks it can tell you who owns your own breaker box. And the day I learned that difference, the sheriff shut that smile off like a bad lamp, and the whole neighborhood heard the click. My name's Jack Sutton, rancher on the edge of Mesa Ridge, New Mexico, a place where the sky changes moods faster than people do. And my wife, Molly, is the kind of woman who hands you the right tool before you remember to ask. So when our lights dipped twice that evening, not the well pump, not the beer fridge, we looked at each other and had a whole conversation without words. I took the big flashlight, stepped outside, and the land answered me like it always does if you listen. 10 yards from the fence, I found a fresh scar in the lawn, a narrow trench someone had tried to tuck back under the sod. Like a lie they hoped wouldn't show. And my beam followed that scar under the wire, across the HOA common, straight into the rose bed behind Paige Whitmore's place. Paige, the HOA president, who likes her house lit up like a runway and her rules printed on pink paper. It wasn't anger that hit me. First, it was certainty, cold and clean, like the snap of winter air in your chest. My power was walking away from me underground. I went back in. Flipped the main in the garage to off. Slid a steel padlock through the hasp with a click that felt like putting a roof on your own head, and looked up at our little security camera. Main breaker locked out. 7:42 p.m. Chain of custody starts now, I said. Steady as a pilot reading the checklist, then Molly and I made a loop, locking the exterior outlets, reading the time into her phone. Not because we like drama, but because if you're right, act like you are, and record it. I filed 2 calls. The utility theft unit first, a woman named Carla, who opened a case and told me to treat the trench like a scene. Then the county's non-emergency line, where Deputy Harris took the report in block letters. I could hear through the phone, and he said the kind of sentence you don't forget. Don't talk to your neighbors, sir. Let the process breathe. Yeah, that happened. By morning, the HOA had a love note on my windshield pink envelope tucked under the wiper, accusing me of obstructing community-accessible electrical resources, my breaker inside my own garage. And page 2 waved a new emergency bylaw, E47, naming my home a support hub with $1,000 a day in fines until I restored access. I folded the paper, poured coffee, and waited for the knock I knew was coming. At 2 in the afternoon, Paige arrived in a red blazer with 2 board members, trailing like bad ideas, and Molly tucked her phone behind the bookshelf so the entryway was on a live feed. I opened the door and leaned on the frame. Jack. She sang, "We need you to cooperate. There's a trench with my name on it headed into your roses." I said, not loud, not mean, just true. "Let's not be dramatic," she tried. The board passed an emergency measure. "We need your hub online. Think of the families." I smiled a little. The kind you smile when a stranger calls your hat. Their hat. Crimes aren't disputes. I said I called the utility. I called the sheriff. This is their lane. She blinked like a cat. Tasted lemon. You went outside the HOA. All disputes are handled internally. Bring a warrant, not a smile if you want, inside my garage. Her finger came up sharp and polished. Final warning. Take off the locks, pay the fines, or I lean your ranch. I didn't raise my voice. No, I said you already made your mistake. The door closed quiet, and if you've ever shut a chapter with a hinge, you can hear. You know what I mean. Next morning, a white truck rolled in with the utility logo and a theft investigator named Travis, who looked like a man whose clipboard had earned its scratches. He crouched over the trench, nodded like a mechanic who can hear a bad bearing, and installed a gray monitor at my meter that would scream data if anyone tried to drink off my line while my main was cold. "Leave it off," he said, handing me his card. "Call me for anything, including weird feelings." We slept to generator hum for 3 nights, the whole house buzzing like a big cat, purring in its sleep. And on the 4th night, close to 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the trail cam by the panel. I thumbed the live view, and there he was, a guy in a hoodie with a cap flashlight clenched in his teeth, working my meter with jittery hands. I knew him. Everybody does. Frank the handyman who hangs Christmas lights and pressure washes sin off driveways. He snipped the seal, and right then a red LED inside the base started blinking like a stop sign with a heartbeat. And Frank froze. Dropped something shiny. Later we saw it was a counterfeit seal, then bolted into the bushes. I called Travis. He answered on the 2nd ring, with the sound of keys and coffee behind him. "Tamper alarm just hit 1:58 a.m. You got video?" "I got it," I said. "Molly's sending it, see the sheriff." He said 5 words that changed the temperature of the week. "Then we go public, whack." They dressed it in Paige's own language, so she couldn't refuse. A community safety inspection to ensure grid integrity at the designated support hub. Tuesday at 5 p.m., right before the HOA meeting open to all residents. You could feel the neighborhood decide to show up. Tom Beck. Our quiet accountant neighbor came by with a story about getting fined for a bird feeder after his wife's surgery, unauthorized structure, and Ms. Delgado, who taught 3rd grade longer than most of us have been breathing, got dinged because her front door white wasn't the approved white. People started laughing that hard laugh you do when you're tired of being small. At 5 on the dot, the Inspector Chief Pike pulled up with Deputy Harris and Travis, and Paige swung in like she'd hired the band. "Mr. Sutton." "With your permission," the inspector said in a voice like gravel that went to college. "I'll open your main." "Please," I said, and stepped back so the whole crowd could see. The screws hit the grass like little metallic commas, and the panel opened on clean labeled breakers. Tidy runs, and 2 thick clamp-on cables biting the service lugs ahead of my main diving into a crude conduit that punched straight into the dirt and headed under the fence. You could feel the crowd inhale. Pike didn't grandstand. He just did his job. Unfused, unprotected. "Tap on the service side," he said. "Light shining on the bite bypasses the home's safety equipment, diverts power off property. Fire risk for the whole street." He snaked a camera into the conduit, turned the screen toward the front row, and we watched that line crawl under my lawn, under the wire. Into the HOA common, right toward the back of Paige's garage like a confession. Travis held up his clipboard. "Monitor shows draw for 24 hours after installation with Mr. Sutton's main locked tamper event. 1:58 a.m. Video supplied by homeowner confirms interference." You could hear the gears change in the crowd, not angry anymore, just settled, like something stood up straight after leaning too long. Paige pointed at the open panel like it had bitten her. "I have no idea what that is." "He did this to himself," she said, voice thin enough to snap. Deputy Harris unfolded a warrant that looked extra official because he held it like it mattered. "We have authority to trace determination, and for public safety, the inspector is ordering an immediate disconnection of the terminating service," he said, tone flat as a level. "I'm the HOA president." Paige tried. "You can't just..." Ma'am Pike said without heat. Right now, your title is irrelevant. They walked through the crowd to Page's meter. The deputy threw the big external disconnect, a lever slap you felt in your chest. Travis unlocked the ring, pulled the glass meter like a tooth set. A lockout plate sealed it. Her house went honest dark. No tree uplights, no pergola glow, just the kind of night that tells the truth. Nobody cheered. A paper cup crumpled somewhere. Loss has a sound. Pike did the math right there, pencil moving like it had authority. Stolen Kayabadabawa, back billed around 7 grand county fines for illegal tap, and tampering investigation costs repairs to my property. North of 20,000 pending criminal review, he said. And when Page tried the last door, she had the HOA will cover it. This was an emergency. Harris didn't even look up. The HOA is not a person. He said liability follows the line, and the line end him. It's at your service. You know what I mean? Molly dropped the tailgate of our pickup and set out a clipboard, like she was offering lemonade. Petition to recall the HOA president, she said, calm. As weather bylaws say, 25%. Triggers a vote if you've had enough sign. Ms. Delgado signed firsthand. Steady, then Tom. Then a line like the one people hold inside themselves for months. The 2 board members who'd trailed Page earlier found their spines and promised to void my fines, rewrite the bylaw so one person couldn't pull the emergency alarm whenever their mood changed, and hold real meetings that fix roads, not egos. Page got in her SUV and drove away without a word, and nobody watched her go because the future was finally asking for attention. The next morning, the HOA's insurance paid a licensed electrician to remove the illegal tap and make my panel look like a diagram again. The trench got dug up and the sod reseeded. And a week later, a certified letter brought a check and an apology that read like it had grown up. The DA would review for charges fine by me. I put the paperwork in a folder, fed the heifers, and listened to the land breathe. Here's what sticks with me. Winning wasn't loud. It was relief porch air you can actually pull into your lungs. That night, Molly and I sat with mugs while the sky went soft. Our house back on grid power, without the generator's growl. And across the fence, Page's place sat dark, with a for sale sign leaning a little. Like even the sign was tired. Tom stopped by with bread and said, "Feels different." Like I stand taller, and I told him the truest thing I know. We didn't do anything special. We just followed the law. And he grinned like a man who'd watched a tool used right. You were patient. You kept records. You let the truth do the heavy lifting. That's the lesson I'm giving you if you want it. Patience isn't weakness. It's leverage. And when somebody twists a rule into a club, don't meet them with a bigger club. Meet them with a ledger, a lock, a camera, a phone call, and a crowd that shows up when it matters. So what do you think? Was I right to call the utility and the sheriff first? Or should I have knocked on Page's door and tried neighbor to neighbor before the law stepped in? Are HOA's community guardrails or power costumes that fit the wrong people a little too well? If you were standing in my boots, what would you have done different? And if you've lived through something like this, how did it end? Drop your take in the comments. Argue it out. Tell me what justice looks like where you live, and if you believe in quiet wins that hold. Hit subscribe, because around here we keep receipts and we let the truth talk.